John, please, one question for Russian MMA fans. Islam Makhachev versus Ian Garry. What do you think about this fight?
Oh, I'm going with Islam because he has a wrestling background, and it's hard to beat wrestlers. So Islam, he may just be one of the greatest fighters in the world right now. It's me and maybe him. So I encourage him to keep going.
I think at times, I saw a tweet recently that said, when you want to punish someone, they should have to listen to Ian Garry for X amount of years. I don't agree with that. I don't think Ian Garry is that annoying human being on the planet. I think Ian Garry is a very confident young man. I believe that Ian Garry believes in himself. And honestly, I think that Ian Garry is a guy that takes pride in his family. And I think because of the way that he takes pride in his family, to some people, they don't love it, right? They don't love just personal things about Garry. But when you look within Garry the fighter, he is elite. So Islam almost trying to challenge his ego to make him fight the fight that would suit him. It's obviously smart on Islam's behalf because at the end of the day, I believe and I think that Islam's team would be smart enough to understand that this is going to be a very difficult fight or has the potential to be a very difficult fight.
What do you think about fight Islam against Tapoya?
If I had to gamble, I would pick Topuria because Topuria has superior stand-up. I feel like Islam has the better wrestling. I feel as if Topuria has more submission skills, but I feel like the knockout power of Topuria makes him slightly better. Either one of those guys could win on any night, but if I had to personally gamble on that fight, I think I would put my money on Ilya.
Many people say that Arman is a very
Магомед, если представим, что следующим оппонентом Ислама станет Иэн Гарри, вот сможет ли Ислам составить полную конкуренцию как раз в этой части в стойке, если бой будет проходить?
Знаете как, Ислам не даст Гарри сделать то, что он делал другим бойцам. Ислам, если его один раз завалит, он уже больше не сможет эти хай-кики, что он там бьет постоянно одно и то же в чашку. Ислам ему не даст это сделать, потому что Ислам это вообще другой боец.
Просто я к чему говорю, что Ислам доказал, что он из стойки может перебить кого угодно.
Ну, я и говорю же, да, Иэн Гарри очень хороший в стойке и такой интересный, такой игровик, но Исламом он не сможет так это делать.
А то, что вот, например, если опять же про Иена говорить, у него рост 191 сантиметр, а у Ислама 178, по-моему. Насколько это, я не знаю.
Да нет, рост, я думаю, никакое значение не имеет, потому что я когда дрался с тайцами, тайцы были на 3-4 головы выше меня, я же говорю, это не имеет значения.
Seems like the next title fight is going to be Islam and Ian Garry, if the rumors materialize, it will be at UFC 330 in Philly. Are we trying to make a turnaround to get on that card and be on the same card as the title fight? And if it does happen, who do you think wins?
Even if they weren't on the card, I don't care who's main event in that card. As long as I'm not injured or anything like that, I obviously not looking past Buckley, not looking past May 9th. I want to be on that card. You know, it's my dream to fight in Philly, especially on a stage as big as this. Because who knows when they're going to come back again? You know, it's been since 2019 was the last time they were here, so I don't know when they'll be back. And as far as who's going to win that fight, Islam is going to run through Ian. Simple as that. He's gonna sub him for sure.
What is the worst that you see when you look ahead to Makhachev?
Being held down for 25 minutes and just having a boring fight. He's a phenomenal wrestler, a phenomenal grappler. And if you allow him the ability to stay on top and utilize his grappling and his wrestling, he can suffocate you and just lie on you like a weighted blanket and you just find it so hard to move. And I'm like, that's not fun for anyone. It's not fun for me. It shouldn't be fun for him. And it's definitely not fun for anyone watching. So I feel like, and he did that. He did exactly that to win the world title fight. And I feel like that's the worst case scenario.
Under the harsh glow of the arena lights, two opposing philosophies are set to collide. Islam Makhachev brings a calculated methodological precision, while Ian Garry relies on sharp instinct and split-second timing. Across the combat sports landscape, analysts and veteran fighters are picking apart the micro-adjustments and tactical nuances that could swing the outcome. In a fight of this magnitude, every subtle decision carries immense weight, turning raw strategy into the difference between a championship legacy and a crushing defeat.
Speaking of you being the former interim welterweight champion of the UFC, next UFC card, they have Islam Makhachev versus Ian Machado Garry. Who do you favor in that?
I favor Makhachev for sure. I think he's just going to take him down and dictate his pace and put the fight where he wants to fight. He's too strong for that little twig, that little cuck that sits in the corner and watches his wife get dogged out by the nutritionist. So, I got Islam. Islam ain't doing that cuck shit.
Много бегает, вот сдалека, с дистанции бьет. Такого высокого соперника у нас не было. 193 сантиметра. Высокий, да. Да, более 190 рост. Руки длинные, ноги длинные, выбрасывает. Опять-таки, надо будет за ним бегать, собирать его. Надо будет хватать, собирать, валить. Тяжелый бой будет. И скоро 35.
Он 91 уже года, да, получается?
91 октября, скоро 35 будет. Все вместе, стилистический возраст, это все, я считаю, что будет тяжелый бой. Нелегкий бой. Я всегда их готовлю к тяжелому бою. И Умара, и Усмана, и Ислама. Я им всегда говорю, на вас, ребята, настраиваются по-другому. На вас, ребята, настраиваются вообще по-другому. Это всегда так бывает. Если они готовились бы условно на Пратиса или Моралеса, они бы готовились по-другому. А здесь уже у них энергетика, все. Если они проявят себя против вас, они становятся сразу автоматически звездами. Так что...
I finished when I was 32. I don't even begin. It was, I have this situation in my life, that's why. But when you become 35, you need to start doing this. Because leave this sport for young guys. Because when you become 35 and you don't finish, somebody gonna finish you. Why? It's better to finish. Why? After 35, you're never gonna be same. People can talk whatever they want. When you pass your prime, you're gonna fight only for money. Like Allah give you 7 years, for example. You finish 40. And last 5 years, you will fight only for money, but they knock you out 10 times. For what? Go and work Uber driver. It's much better to be still inside the cage.
Here's a question. If you had a fight or a showdown, name exactly 3 fighters you would take with you.
Islam Makhachev,
Who?
Islam Makhachev.
The fighters are Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier, and also Ilia Topuria.
Ilia Topuria?
Yeah.
Every time we see each other, they treat me very well. These are 3 guys whom I respect a lot as fighters. And not just for what they do in the cage, but also for who they are outside of it. And
who is the best among these 3?
Out of these 3, Islam Makhachev.
Islam Makhachev?
Yes, Islam Makhachev. I think he is an exceptionally talented master and is currently working hard on improving his footwork. I think he is one of those who, in my opinion, has undergone the most significant transformation.
This is the fight I've been begging for. This is the fight I've deserved, I've earned, against the toughest task. There is no tougher challenge. You cannot name me a fighter right now in recent history who has tried to come up and competed against this level of champion, a 2-weight world champion, on a record-setting, unbeaten streak in the UFC, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter on the planet. It's the toughest challenge for a challenger to become the champion ever. And I thrive off that excitement.
The opponent Ian Garry isn't one to shy away from the scale of the task up ahead. Framing this matchup as the toughest challenge for a challenger to become champion ever, the Irishman points to Makhachev's towering status. In Garry's eyes, no modern fighter has stepped into the octagon against a champion boasting a resume quite this dominant. Yet, rather than being intimidated, Garry sees the reigning champion's legendary streak not as an impossible hurdle, but as the ultimate launchpad to cement his own greatness.
Ian Garry and Islam.
Love that. Dagestan versus Ireland 2. Ian Gary's legit as fuck.
Yeah.
Islam moving up. I think Ian's going to be quite a bit bigger, just frame-wise, confident.
Yeah.
And confidence is important. I know we saw Ilya, how confident he was, and that didn't pan out too well, but confidence is still one of the most important attributes in fighting. And Ian Garry is confident that he can go out there and beat Islam.
Sean O'Malley chooses to frame this matchup as a compelling continuation of the Dagestan versus Ireland rivalry, rating Ian Garry as a legitimate contender in the division. O'Malley highlights two major variables that work in Gary's favor, those being physical dimensions and psychological mindset. Because Islam Makhachev is stepping up in weight, Garry will possess a distinct advantage in overall frame and size inside the octagon. Furthermore, O'Malley stresses that unshakable self-belief remains one of the most vital attributes for any fighter entering a bout of this magnitude. Gary's genuine conviction that he can overcome the pound-for-pound champion gives him the mental baseline necessary to compete at the highest level.
Islam or Ian, who are you picking?
I'm picking Islam. Just has too many tools to win. He's just too strong, and his grappling is just going to be undeniable in that cage. He's going to take down that little cuck. He's going to be too busy worried about what his wife's doing with other men to worry about winning a world title. So, I got my money on Islam. And hopefully one day, he'll want to come over to RAF and get beat on the freestyle mat.
Wow.
While O'Malley sees a real path for Garry through size and mindset, Colby Covington takes the complete opposite approach. Putting his money squarely on Makhachev, Covington figures the fight ultimately boils down to a massive gap in wrestling horsepower that Garry simply won't be able to bridge. Makhachev will use his physical strength to close the distance, drag the Irishman to the mat, and completely neutralize his striking game. In typical fashion, Covington threw plenty of personal jabs at Gary's life outside the cage, but stripped down to pure fighting, his breakdown is straightforward. The champion has way too many paths to victory, and his suffocating grappling will prove far too much for the challenger to handle.
Did you hear the news about Islam fighting Garry?
No.
Who do you think would win that one?
I mean, Islam is champion and he has a lot of experience, but I think young Garry has a chance.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think so. Young Garry has to stop his takedowns, and striking young Garry is very smart, calculated fighter.
Merab Davalishvili takes a much more measured view of the matchup, balancing respect for the champion with a clear appreciation for what Garry brings to the table. He fully acknowledges Makhachev's massive edge and top-level experience, but he isn't counting the young Irishman out. In Merab's eyes, Garry is a remarkably smart, calculated striker who knows how to control space. If Garry can keep his hips clear and stuff those initial takedown attempts, his sharp technical striking and fight IQ give him a very real shot at turning the division upside down.
Islam Makhachev, too tough for Garry. Garry has a good striking. I think on the striking, Garry on the long distance with his kicks, he can make problem for Islam, but Islam has a good timing of takedown. He's gonna take him down, most likely submit round number 3, 4. Yeah.
Armen Tsarukyan gives credit where it's due, acknowledging that Gary's rangy striking and long kicks could genuinely create early headaches for Makhachev. But having felt top-tier grappling himself, Tsarukyan doesn't see those perimeter problems lasting very long. He points to Makhachev's uncanny timing on entries, predicting that the champion will eventually map out Gary's distance, level change under a strike, and drag him to the canvas. Once the fight hits the mat, Tsarukyan expects the skill gap to take over, envisioning Makhachev systematically breaking the challenger down before locking up a submission somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round.
Islam Makhachev and his upcoming fight, he made a successful debut in the upper weight class, step up to welterweight. What difference does it take when you stepping up in the weight class on a championship level?
Yeah, Islam's going to fight against Ian Garry next, right? I assume that Islam's going to win that one just because of his wrestling pedigree. To be able to dictate if the fight's going to be standing or on the ground, it's a great gift. Another guy with a strong team behind him, strong faith. I'm not rooting for anyone in that fight because I don't know either one of those guys on the personal level, but I'm assuming that Islam's going to win. That's my prediction.
Adding his voice to the mix, Jon Jones takes a pretty objective, big-picture look at the matchup, backing Islam Makhachev while making sure to mention he doesn't really have a horse in the race. For Jones, it really just comes down to high-level wrestling pedigree. He points out that having elite wrestling gives a fighter the ultimate security blanket. It lets him dictate where the fight happens and control the pace, whether the opponent is standing or on the mat. Combined with a world-class camp behind him, Makhachev just brings a level of structural control to the cage that Jones thinks will ultimately carry him through. Chael Sonnen approaches the fight from a completely fresh perspective, suggesting that the challenger's real hurdle might be that he still doesn't realize how good he actually is. Beneath the loud persona and swagger, Sonnen sees someone who quietly set the bar too low early in his career. Garry sits comfortably among the top 3 fighters on earth, even if that realization hasn't fully set in for the Irishman yet. That self-limitation aside, Garry is at his most lethal when the stakes are sky high and things get chaotic, doing his finest work when the house is on fire, which makes him a threat when the bright lights come on. Garry's own words show that Chael might be right on the money, especially when it comes to keeping a cool head under intense pressure. Garry can instantly flip the switch into promoter mode. He attributes that composure to a pretty specific mental trick. Before stepping into the cage, he forces himself to run through the absolute worst-case scenarios, such as getting caught, getting hurt, or having his game plan go completely out the window. Instead of letting those thoughts mess with his head, he uses them to stay sharp and respect what his opponent brings to the table. By mentally walking through every disaster before it even happens, nothing in the heat of the fight can throw him off, keeping him totally calm right in the middle of the storm. Ray Longo brings a seasoned coach's eye to the conversation, pointing out that Ian Garry's sheer size and style present a much trickier test for Makhachev than people might think. Longo sees a massive welterweight who uses awkward rhythm, constant movement, and range to make life uncomfortable for his opponents and somehow always finds a path to victory. What makes him even more dangerous is that Garry has been putting in serious, quiet work on his wrestling for years, knowing these matchups were coming. Between his physical frame, unorthodox movement, and defensive preparation, Longo views Garry as the ultimate litmus test for whether Makhachev's dominance truly translates to 170 pounds. Building on Longo's take on Garry's size, Kenny Florian zeroes in on what actually makes the Irishman so tricky. Florian points out that Garry's striking depends on constant movement and staying light on his feet, which creates a huge problem for a fighter like Islam Makhachev, who needs to drive forward and crash the distance to grab a clinch. Florian admits that if Makhachev manages to get inside and secure his grips, he'll probably control the action. But until he gets there, sleeping on Garry's striking power is a mistake. The challenger has more than enough pop to catch Makhachev coming in and put him away. Whether Islam Makhachev's relentless chain wrestling wins out, or Ian Garry's length, lateral movement, and high-stakes composure pull off the upset, this matchup is shaping up to be the ultimate litmus test for both men. It's a classic clash of styles where one tiny mistake in distance management or timing could change the course of the entire division. Drop your predictions down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an analysis. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.